Thank you for registering and completing another Tay Township Public Library take-home activity kit. Today we are going to be making mandala dot art. I really suggest that you watch the video from start to finish before you start your project today. First, we're going to take a look at what you get in your kit. So you are going to get some black artist paper, a cardstock template or stencil, a pencil, a couple Q-tips, wooden skewers, paint, and a piece of chalk. So the first thing we're going to do to get started is to take some chalk dust and mark out our stencil so that we know where to place our dots so we can have a nice pattern. So the easiest way to do that we found is to take your little piece of chalk, and I'm going to use a ruler, and it is to scrape and make some dust. And I found the easiest way to do that was to use one of your Q-tips to just dot and sprinkle the dust all over the lines of our stencil. So let's take our piece of chalk, and then what I'm gonna do is make a little pile of chalk dust on the edge. So you just kind of use a ruler or a little pair of scissors, like safety scissors, and just scrape some dust. And you can see I have a little pile right here. So we're just gonna get some going, and then you're gonna use that to mark out your stencil. And it does take a little bit of time. You can also use a tissue and rub it on, or your finger might work. We'll give that a try too. Now line up your stencil on top of your black paper so it's nice and straight. And then here, let's give a try with our finger. So you can rub that on like that. You can see how dark it is. But like I said, I found it easiest to take your Q-tip, rub it in the dust, and then just pat it on. And you want to do that on all the lines of the stencil. It's easiest to work from one side and the other. And I'm going to speed this up, and you can see what it looks like when it's all dotted on. So I actually found it easier to put some chalk, just draw it on my paper here, rub it on, and then gently rub it on the stencil. And once you've got all the parts rubbed on and dabbed on, then you can take your stencil off and you will see the beautiful pattern left on there. And then you can put the stencil off to the side, and you can shake off some extra, but not too hard, because you want to be able to see it. And then we'll get ready for painting. All right, before we get started with the painting aspect of today's craft, I wanted to talk about what mandala means. So mandala in the ancient Sanskrit language of Hinduism and Buddhism means circle. Traditionally, a mandala is a geometric design or pattern that represents the cosmos or deities in various heavenly worlds. So that being said, when we're creating mandala dot art, we're creating a pattern with many small colorful dots in many sizes. And it is meant to be relaxing and calming and symmetrical, and it's relaxing and calming to create and look at. The key is to take it slowly. We're going to start at the center, work row by row, making one dot at a time, and then repeating the pattern. And then you build on that shape by adding more dots around the circle in the same manner. You want it, again, to look symmetrical and colorful. Take your time. Don't feel pressured to make it look a certain way or exactly matching mine. It's meant to be unique and represent you. So I'm going to work on mine a bit, and I'm going to work from the center out and do a couple rows for you, and then I'm going to time lapse the rest of the video so you can see it grow and develop fairly quickly, but it's meant to take a couple of hours, so don't feel rushed to do this. Take your time and do it on a cold day where you're inside and have fun with it. So we got in our kit 3 colors. So we're gonna play around with the 3 colors and the dots. And we want to have a couple different sizes of dots. So in your kit, we gave you the skewers, the pencil, and the Q-tips. So the Q-tips and the pencil make the larger size dots, and then you actually have 2 sizes of dots on your skewers. So you have like a medium size and then a very teeny tiny dot if you use the sharpened edge. And then I found some paintbrushes where I could get a couple more sizes of dots. So we'll see if we use those too. And you can look around your house too to see what you can use to make a couple more sizes of dots. Now I'm going to start out in the middle, I think with my dark purple. And the way, when I practiced it, I liked to do a bigger dot where there's a point or a joint and then fill it in with smaller dots of different sizes in along the lines. So you'll see what I mean when we get started. But I'm going to use my pencil end, I think, and then you can wipe off the paint when you're switching colors. And we want to work with one color at a time before we switch. So we'll do all the dots in the row of that color, then switch to another color of a different size, and then switch to another size and do all of that size. I hope that makes sense, but you'll see as we go along. So I'm going to take my purple and give it a little, oh, I'm doing the wrong end already. I want to use the eraser end. And you don't need a lot of paint to do this. It takes actually very little paint. So you just want to dab the tip in, and you can dab it off on your paper to practice to see how you want the dot to look. Dab, and then so you want it to look full, but not be flooding. So just a little bit of paint on there, and you can dab a little off, and you can use this to dab from. And then I'm going to do my first dot right over that center dot in there. Picture straight, holding your instrument. It might not look in the camera, but I'm holding it up and down straight, and then that'll give you a nice perfect circle. So there is my first dot on there. And then I think I'm going to do a couple of purple dots at the points of this type of flower shape, and make sure you're not rubbing your chalk off over here like I am. I can still see the outline though. So I'm going to do a dot here, and you do have to dip it in your paint every single time you do a dot. See, I don't have enough paint there. I'm actually just going to put a bit on the paper so I don't get too much. So go over that dot and then dip, dot, dip, dip, and then dot, dip, dot. And now I'm going to change sizes. So I have some paper towel up here. I'm going to wipe my paint off of my eraser and put that off to the side. And then I'm going to try a smaller size, and I'm going to keep in the purple so we can dot onto my craft paper. Remember to protect your work surface. I might have forgotten to say that. And then I'm going to put a dot at the end of each of these little lines of the same color. A little bit more. So maybe this tool is a little too small. Oops. So you're going to do all the dots in your row of pattern of that color, of that size, and then switch to another one. So I'm just going to dab on these to make them a little bit bigger. And then I'm going to switch. I'm going to close up this purple and then go to the lighter color. And I think I'm going to use the bottom side of a skewer. And you can again dab it to get it right coverage. And then I'm going to do a dot next to my big dot in each. Yeah, I like this size better. At the end of that little white line. And dip, then dot, dip, then dot. That'll give you those nice perfect circles. And then I'm also going to do a dot at the start of each of this kind of flower pattern. So it's going to be like 2 light purple dots right next to each other. And then I'm going to do those size dots right next to the bigger dots that I did of the dark purple. Alright, and now I'm going to wipe off the edge so I don't get paint all over my sweater, the tip of that skewer, and I'm going to use the smaller pointed end and fill in. So I'm going to put a small dot right next in between the little dot and the bigger dot. And then I'm going to do some more smaller dots with the pin prick in between those 2 medium-sized dots. So I want to do 3 dots. So what you're going to do first is go in the middle. Oh, gotta keep my thing straight. In between the 2. And then dip and then do the middle of each one. And then you figure out the next part of your pattern. Now I could switch and do white dots, but I think I'll finish this with purple. So then you're gonna wanna do one in between that. And in between, so I did it on both sides. It might be hard to see with the chalk lines, but I've got 3 dots in between 2 bigger dots right there. So we're just going to go and fill in those lines. And the reason I did the one in the middle first is so that you can get it evenly spaced. Oh, that one went off a little bit. Like I said, take your time. There's no rush. You're just building the pattern the way you like it. So now I'm gonna do some white before we speed up the camera so you can see how mine develops. I'm gonna close this light purple. You can see how very little paint this takes. And take out my white. And then what you can do is you can do some little dots in rings to fill in. And you can switch skewers to use a different one, but if you wipe all the paint off, it shouldn't bleed. So I'm gonna take my white paint and I'm gonna do a white dot in between each of these purple ones. The white really pops on there. And you can also get fancy and layer your dots if you wanted to go and let it dry and do a smaller dot inside the colored dot. You can get super fancy that way. I'm gonna put a white dot in between each of those 2 at the top. And then you can do dots on either side of that. And it's just building your pattern and making sure you do the same thing all the way around your circle. All right, so I've worked a couple hours on this. It is only finished when you decide it's finished. You can keep adding more layers of dots and going around the different patterns. It's entirely up to you. I found it very relaxing. I could probably have gone a little bit slower because some of the spacing of my dots isn't perfect, but that's okay. It's all how you want it to look. And you can see in some places I've layered different colors on top of the bigger dots. I liked it that way, but you don't have to do that. And you can do in one entire sequence of the same size dot and the same color dot. I switched it up a bit just to show you the different ways that you could do it. And you could do each row the same color, each row the same size, or make it as detailed as you want. I've gone pretty detailed, but you could even go a couple of steps further with it and, you know, fill in all the black spaces and do more lines. You can see I've done a secondary line on some places and joined it up, and I joined it in rows like this and added more dots that way. So it's entirely up to you. I really hope you have fun with this craft. Take your time and relax with it, and do it on a nice cold day so you can be stuck inside with it and have a lot of fun. The very last step to do is when it's completely dry, so let it dry for a couple of hours or overnight, is take a nice soft tissue like a Kleenex and just gently rub all the extra chalk off if you've got any extra. You can't see too much of my chalk actually. You can also tap it off, but that's the last step. So I'm gonna let mine dry and do that, and we're all done. So thank you so much for doing another Tate Township Public Library craft, actually the first one of 2022, so congratulations for that. And don't forget, you can always share your photos with us at library@tay.ca. Send us an email with photos, or you can tag us on Facebook or Instagram at Tate Township PL. Thanks again, and I hope you enjoyed this craft.